All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Anna Kasparian with you guys. I'm in LA, Anna's in New York. That's because she's going on CNN tonight at 10 o'clock on Abby Phillips' show. And it's gonna be a doozy. Can I tell them who's on?
Yeah.
Jay Harrison, former head of the DNC, former Cenk nemesis, is that's not what he's known for.
You're crazy. Hakeem Jeffries will be interviewed by Abby Phillip at the top of the show. And then we are going to react to that interview immediately after it's over. So that's another thing you guys can look forward to. I'm sure he's gonna bring the charisma. I'm looking forward to that. I'm
looking forward to what AIPAC Shakur has to say. Okay, so that's tonight, 10 o'clock. Don't miss it. Anna's gonna be on there, so it's gonna be very fascinating. Rage Rock for now already sent in 10 gifted memberships on YouTube because he's an American hero. Now, the show we've got for you guys is chock full of really important news. So a federal judge strikes down Trump's actions in arresting Israel's critics. Super important. And then do we have a deal on peace in Gaza? Is the deal real? And what is going to happen if the deal is accepted or not accepted? We now, a day after the deal was announced, we have the answers. We have the answers. So we will get to that in a little bit. So Casper, take it away.
Well, I actually want to begin with that federal judge just tearing Donald Trump apart in this lengthy opinion. Let's get right to it. A Reagan-appointed federal judge has absolutely ripped President Donald Trump and the Trump administration to shreds after their crackdown on pro-Palestinian protesters on college campuses. Now, this is again a Reagan-appointed judge, meaning a previous Republican president appointed this individual, and this judge did not mince words, so buckle up. Now, the case centers on efforts by the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security to deport pro-Palestinian non-citizens who have protested against the genocide currently taking place in the Gaza Strip. These include individuals like Mahmoud Khalil and Rumiesa Ozturk, who of course was the PhD student at Tufts, who just happened to co-write a article in the student paper that I guess pro-Israel individuals didn't like. And so they called on the Trump administration to target her. And soon after that, you have these masked DHS officials just taking her off the streets, arresting her. Now, in the scathing 161-page decision, federal judge William G. Young ruled that the administration has indeed unlawfully chilled the protected political speech of university professors and of students. So let me give you the details on what he had to say. Young lambasted Trump and his administration for attacking free speech under the cover of an unconstitutionally broad definition of anti-Semitism used in efforts to deport non-citizen activists. And in the case of Ozturk and of Mahmoud Khalil, we're talking about individuals who are here as students, either with a green card or a student visa. Now, he argued, meaning the judge argued, that Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and Kristi Noem, head of DHS, and their subordinates acted in concert to misuse the sweeping powers of their respective offices to target non-citizen pro-Palestinians for deportation primarily on account of their First Amendment protected political speech. And he also hammered on the fact that non-citizens do, and guys, please remember this, this is important. There's so many Americans who are just unaware of it. If you are in the United States, even if you are not a citizen, let's say you have a visa or a green card, you are still protected by the same constitutional rights, including the right to free speech. So he said that the administration's goal, well, he ruled that the First Amendment could not draw on the Trump administration's invidious distinction between citizens and non-citizens, which the judge said is not to be found in our history or jurisprudence, a word that is difficult to say, but I think I nailed it there. Now, a few other things I want to just quickly mention before I go to you, Cenk. Now, he said that the administration's goal was to silence pro-Palestinian protesters by terrorizing them. He writes that they did so in order to strike fear into similarly situated non-citizen pro-Palestinian individuals, proactively and effectively curbing lawful pro-Palestinian speech and intentionally denying such individuals, including the plaintiffs here, the freedom of speech that is their right. And what's especially unusual about Young's ruling is the fact that he dedicated more than a dozen pages to specifically addressing President Donald Trump's disrespect for the United States Constitution. It's incredible. Trump's conduct, the judge wrote, violated the sacred oath of a president to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and the actions of his administration represented a full-throated assault on the First Amendment. I fear President Trump believes the American people are so divided that today they will not stand up, fight for, and defend our most precious constitutional values so long as they are lulled into thinking their own personal interests are not affected. Is he correct? And that's a question that I've been thinking about quite a bit, certainly well before this ruling, Cenk. Are the partisan divides in this country so devastating? Are we so divided that as long as your preferred party is violating the constitutional rights of your political opponents, you're just gonna let it slide? And if you do let it slide, somewhere down the line, there will be consequences for you as well. So just something to think about.
Yeah, literally what I wrote on social media today. So the most important issue here has nothing to do with Israel. It has to do with the First Amendment. So we're gonna come back to that. First, why were these guys arrested? There's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people think, well, if they did violence. I know, yes, if they did violence, they would have been arrested for assault. They were not arrested for assault. They did not do any violence, nor is violence even charged. Like even the Trump administration is not saying that they did violence. Literally, no one is saying they did violence. They're saying that they said things that were anti-Semitic. Okay, let's pause there. Saying things that are anti-Semitic is perfectly legal in America. It might not be good, it's terrible. I don't want you to say those things that are anti-Semitic. Now in this case, did they say things that are anti-Semitic? We'll get to that in a second. But even if they did, like there are folks online who say things that are anti-Semitic all the time. Anti-Muslim, are you kidding me? Right, millions of comments. Anti-Christian, anti-American, all of that is legal in America. Why? Because of our First Amendment. It's the most precious right we have, the freedom of speech. And the freedom of speech does not protect popular speech. That's easy, you don't need to protect it. It protects unpopular speech. It protects all speech, but the point is to protect dissent, unpopular speech, unpopular opinions, etc., because we don't know who's right. And the more we talk and the more we have freedom, we sort that out. So this is a Reagan-appointed judge, obviously comes from the right? Now he criticizes Trump a lot. If you catch feelings over that, well, there's nothing I could do to help you, brother. Okay, I know people caught feelings about our Biden criticism, but what I've read of what the judge wrote about Trump, it was aggressive but correct. He's not criticizing him because he's Trump. He's criticizing specifically for things that are honestly un-American, taking away First Amendment rights to please a foreign government. I don't care if Biden or Trump does that. That's nuts, right? And he talks about the mass. Now, look, it's not pertinent to this case, I don't think, okay? But it is pertinent to the environment of oppression that is being set up. You're not allowed to say this about Israel. You're not allowed to say about it. By the way, we're now surveilling you. And for all the protesters, we're getting scans of your faces. And we don't care if you're on the left or the right. We don't care if you're Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter. We're surveilling all of you. And if you step an inch outside the line and criticize Israel, that's it, you're arrested. One of them wrote an op-ed. So now to Anna's point and the critical point in this case, if you don't know, there's 200 years of Supreme Court jurisprudence on this issue, saying that they have ruled again and again and again that First Amendment rights are for everyone in America, citizen or not citizen. Now you could say, hey, you know what, I don't like that. I don't like that the Constitution makes it available to non-citizens. Okay, that's fine, but take it up with the Constitution, it does. So now non-citizens have other things that they don't have a right to. For example, they don't have a right to vote. So that's unacceptable. But do they have a right to the First Amendment? Yes, the Constitution says they do. And so guys, this is maybe the most critical part. If you take away their rights, you take away our rights. Don't take away any rights to please a foreign government. So now they say, well, this isn't about a foreign government. They have offended Jewish people in America.
Please.
First of all, they didn't. They had said nothing about Jews, literally nothing. They said Israel should be boycotted because that government is committing a genocide, killed 20,000 kids, et cetera, right? So factually, totally incorrect to say that they said something anti-Semitic. And when you challenge folks on it, they're like, they can't find anything that any of these defendants have said about Jewish people. All they say is, well, they had the temerity to criticize beloved Israel. Who cares? Who cares? We're allowed to criticize foreign governments. We're allowed to criticize our own government. So if you take away their rights, you take away our rights, and now we're serving a different government for no goddamn reason. So this decision is 100% correct, 100% needed. Thank God, and Anna's absolutely right. Be careful what you wish for. If you say, well, because Trump's doing it and I like Trump, or because Israel, we're doing it on behalf of Israel and I think Israel should be first and second and third and fourth and eighth, and I love Israel, so if you cross them, that's it, take away rights. Well, you lost your rights. Then what's gonna happen when somebody else gets into office, whether they're a Democrat or maybe someone who hates Israel, and goes, now, if you say positive things about Israel, that's it, you're under arrest. And if you, oh my God, it's camps, they're putting us in camps. That's what you're doing right now. Just if you criticize Israel. So this is, look, Anna, when this case started, I think that a lot of Trump voters were, like, well, Trump's doing it, so this feels a little weird, but I don't know all the facts, and they probably did violence, et cetera. Now, when this ruling comes in, the Trump base is way more divided, and a lot of them have realized, oh, they're trying to put an asterisk on the First Amendment that you're allowed to say anything you want unless it's about Israel.
Well, I mean, we've seen that play out. And I think a good example of that is what occurred during the mass protests following the murder of George Floyd. Remember, that happened initially under Donald Trump's watch. And so I'm glad that he didn't, I know that he had thoughts about calling for martial law to end the protest, but he didn't in the end. He didn't do that. And the protests went on. But when you have protests in regard to the conduct and behavior of a foreign country, well, it's interesting how rapidly the Trump administration tried to shut that down. And so it's just something to keep in mind, because I think one of the most important protections we have here in the borders of the United States is the ability to freely express how we feel about the conduct of our own government and the conduct of a foreign government. And just to kind of bolster the point that the nefarious forces behind encouraging our government to violate the free speech rights of these students was in fact Israel. This whole peace deal negotiation that we've been hearing about between Trump and Netanyahu has called for Arab leadership and governance in the Gaza Strip, which would be great. Some have floated the idea of a reformed Palestinian Authority essentially governing the Gaza Strip, but Netanyahu responded to that, Cenk, by giving a speech and saying that the reforms must absolutely include the PA no longer criticizing Israel.
I mean, guys, think about it, right? Jesus Christ. Now should be illegal in some form or shape or form for the Palestinians to criticize their own occupation. Before it was like, no, you have no right to self-defense. Only Israel has a right to self-defense. And the right to self-defense includes invading other countries and taking their land. Somehow that's self-defense, right? But the Palestinians have no right to self-defense. You pick up even a rock, we will murder you on the spot. We don't care if you're 16 years old, 4 years old, we don't care. That's it, no right to self-defense at all. Now, you don't even have a right to criticize. That's it, you have to bow your head to your overlords.
I just wanted to really drive home the point that the Israeli government is so utterly thin-skinned and sensitive to any criticism. I mean, they go around smearing people as anti-Semites. They've got their IDF soldiers threatening people, sending photos of the weapons, implying that they're gonna get killed for criticizing a foreign government. It's crazy, but that's what I think is like really the motivating factor behind what the Trump administration had been doing to these protesters and to these students. So we got to move on. I want to get to our next story. So let's get right into it.
For months, Trump has grown exacerbated at Netanyahu's resistance to ending the war and his expanding military operations in the Middle East. Once confident his personal relationship with Netanyahu could push him toward a resolution, Trump has wondered out loud in recent months whether he's being played by a man he described as a friend. It seemed very clear that Netanyahu was very interested in the alternative ending to this story, which is not a peace deal, but rather an ongoing march of the Israeli military into Gaza. Is Trump being played?
I mean, they may very well come to having to completely destroy and eliminate Hamas.
It's been 2 years. Like, how are they gonna root out Hamas?
Well, things got a little heated in that segment of Abby Phillips's show on CNN yesterday, and we'll get back to just how heated it got, because there has been deep skepticism about the Trump ceasefire deal that would allegedly end the genocide that's currently being carried out by Israel in Gaza, which is why Pete Seat, the gentleman you saw in that video, believes that Netanyahu might ultimately need to finish the job by rooting out Hamas. Again, we'll get back to that exchange in just a minute. But before we do, it really is worth getting into some of the newer reporting on the peace deal, which, to be honest with you, already appears poised to fail. And that would be a tragedy for every party involved. Of course, the Palestinian people would suffer the most, and so would the family members of the hostages who remain held captive in the Gaza Strip. So before I get to all of the different ways in which it appears the Netanyahu regime looks to sabotage this peace deal, Cenk, do you want to say a sentence, maybe two?
Yep. So I thought you made a brilliant point, which we're going to get to in a sec, about how do we confirm that Hamas has turned themselves in, turned their guns in? No one can answer that question because it's supposed to be a purposely unanswerable question. But I also want to talk about, and this is really important, is the peace deal real? And is Israel going to abide by it? So we now know some of those answers. So Anna, back to you.
Okay, so look, the plan would require Israel to remove all IDF troops from the Gaza Strip. And I thought that point in the deal was crazy because there has never been an indication that the Israeli government would ever withdraw from Gaza. They intend to remain there. First they say as a security measure, but then you see all of the advertisements for new settlements in the Gaza Strip. They're talking about it at conferences all across the globe. But while Netanyahu publicly claimed that he accepted this deal, he's saying something entirely different on social media posts where he speaks in Hebrew. So according to the Washington Post, if the deal were signed, Hamas would release all Israeli hostages while the Israeli Defense Forces would remain in most of Gaza, Netanyahu stressed Monday. Those who had earlier urged him to withdraw the military and thus allow Hamas to rebuild were dead wrong, he said. No way, that's not happening. Okay, to be clear, the deal that Trump got Netanyahu to agree to, verbally at least yesterday, does not say that Hamas would remain in charge or would remain as the body that's governing Gaza. So like this idea that it's all about withdrawing troops and allowing Hamas to continue governing Gaza, like that's not a thing. That's not part of the deal. But the point is that Netanyahu has no intention of withdrawing IDF troops. He also said that he would not agree to a Palestinian state under any circumstance, which doesn't surprise me. He's been saying this for literally decades. Why would he change his mind now? And that was also a huge part of this deal, albeit a vague portion of the deal. Trump's proposal calls for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. Again, while Netanyahu agreed to this verbally yesterday in a joint press conference, later he went on to say, again in Hebrew in a social media post, there's no way, not gonna do that. Now, there's more. So already we have Israel refusing to the terms of Trump's ceasefire deal, but they intend to set Hamas up to be the problem. What do I mean by that? Well, Benjamin Netanyahu said the following. President Trump added that if Hamas refuses, he will give Israel full backing to complete the military operation and eliminate them. So the way that I see this, Cenk, and you got to keep it 100 with me, come on. The way that I see this, whether Trump is part of this plot or not, Netanyahu sees this as a way of providing himself an excuse to carry on with the atrocities and the mass slaughter that the Israeli government and the IDF have been carrying out in the Gaza Strip for nearly 2 years. All he's gonna do is point to Hamas and say, look, there's record of me accepting the ceasefire deal and Hamas didn't. And so as a result, we're gonna have to finish the job. And we know what finish the job really means. It's not really about going after Hamas. It's about wiping Palestinians and their identity off of the Gaza Strip entirely.
Yeah, so there's two questions here. Is the peace deal real? And we're asking you guys that on tyt.com and elsewhere. So hope that you guys can vote on that. I'm curious what you think. Most of you think no. Okay, I'm gonna surprise you guys by saying I think the peace deal is real. I think that Trump is the one that offered it, not Netanyahu. Well, that's not I think, we know that, right?
That's not the first time though. That's not the first time. Trump has offered peace deals like multiple times, and every single time Israel rejects it.
That's right. But this is the first part of the question. Is the deal real, right? No. And so if Israel had offered it and it had a bunch of caveats like and catch-22s and it was a purposely unsolvable riddle, we'd analyze it and we'd tell you that, right? No, this is in my opinion, it's a real deal. Trump offered it. That doesn't mean, oh, well, then okay, it must be great. No, the critical part is the Arab and Muslim countries, including ones that are not necessarily beholden to Israel, like Qatar and Turkey, have signed on and saying, yes, we want this, right? And a lot of other Palestinian leaders said yes, okay? Now, that's not, to me, that's not the primary issue. The primary issue is the one that Anna's alluding to. Will Israel actually abide by it? And what does it mean to abide by the deal? So I think what happened was Trump wanted to get this done badly. He's got the Nobel Prize in his head. Plus, most importantly, he sees, and there's quotes of him saying this very, very clearly, that his base is slipping away from Israel and from him for supporting Israel. So he wants to just get this out done with already. And how do you get a deal? Everybody knows how you get a deal. Israel withdraws, Hamas surrenders, whatever that means. We'll come back to that. But Hamas does not run Gaza. Some sort of Arab coalition comes in, runs Gaza, and we go on a roadmap to a two-state solution. We've known this forever, for decades. That's the answer, so that's what the Arabs offer, that's what America offers, so the Muslim world and America are aligned on that, right? So now Israel gets offered this, and Netanyahu has a decision to make. He's at the White House, Trump says, that's it, we're doing this, and you're either gonna say no to me in front of the whole world, and then you're gonna be in a lot of trouble, or you're gonna say yes, okay? So Netanyahu, being a smart guy, says yes. And so why does he say yes? Because he thinks, I say yes in English, tomorrow in Hebrew I say no. Right, I say yes to America so I could come back and do hasbara and propaganda here and go, oh my God, I wanted a peace, but those savage Palestinians, let's kill them all. Let's kill them all. They didn't want, we offered peace. This is the oldest Israeli trick in the world. Like they come in, they go give you the worst offer in the world. Like we keep 75% of your land. I'm exaggerating. And then we get to humiliate you. You never get to really have a state. Well, we offered peace. We offered peace, right? So in this case, it's a real offer, and they go, okay, well, we'll just undermine it. So the first way that they undermined it is Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff come in. Netanyahu pressures them, and they pressure Trump, and they say, okay, well, it was supposed to be a full withdrawal, but okay, Israel doesn't want to withdraw. Well, that's the whole point of the peace deal. So they're gonna have a security perimeter. But today, Netanyahu in Hebrew says not good enough. No, not a security perimeter. We're just not gonna withdraw. So they're gonna give us the hostages in 72 hours. And by the way, the 72 hours, if they hold to it, starts when Israel accepts, which theoretically was yesterday. So the clock is ticking. So they're gonna go, give us a hostage, and then you know what they're gonna do? And Netanyahu's gonna say, what do you mean? I said it in right afterwards that I was never gonna leave. You heard, no way, we're never going to leave Gaza. So this is not a peace deal. It's just a way of saying, give us the hostages back and we're gonna keep killing you. And so.
That's exactly right,
yeah.
That's exactly right. In fact, Gail Talshir, who is a political scientist over at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, said the following: there's a lot of gray area in the deal, and this is how Netanyahu wanted it. He can tell the right wing he will never fully withdraw, and he can show Hamas is the one saying no, and he can continue the war. So, I mean, I just think it's as clear as day. And for anyone who was skeptical about this so-called peace deal from the moment news dropped about it, congratulations, you live in reality. Now, whether or not Trump is sincere about getting a peace deal done, I don't know and I don't care, because the common denominator in terms of the failure of these peace deals, of these ceasefire deals, has been Israel. So in my view, if any US official, including the president of the United States, is serious about getting the Israelis to agree to a real peace deal, they would leverage American weapons. But Trump isn't willing to do that, is he? So as long as Trump isn't willing to do that, I don't trust that he's serious about signing a peace deal. Final thing that we'll end with here is
I gotta say one
the
more
back
thing,
and forth.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you say it and then I'll come back and finish it.
I was just gonna go to that video, the CNN video, so it was gonna kind of change the topic a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's watch.
Yeah, let's watch it.
It's been 2 years. Like how are they gonna root out Hamas? Like what they are literally multiplying extremists right now. When you kill people's entire family members, that leads to more extremism.
I know you're anti-Israel. I get it.
Okay, you know what? I'm anti-mass slaughter, and that's mass slaughter has been going on for 2 years straight in Gaza and the West Bank and the West Bank.
They were watching
How many countries has Israel bombed over the last 2 years? Because it's not just Gaza.
Come on.
It's not just Gaza. 65,000 people slaughtered in Palestine and Gaza, and that doesn't matter? That doesn't matter at all. What happened on October 7th was an atrocity, and I've spoken out against it. What I find so interesting is that there's no concern at all for the lives of the Palestinians who have been lost in Gaza at all.
Pete,
tens of thousands of people.
That's why you want to get rid of Hamas, because they are destroying those lives.
What does that mean, though? Do you think they're rooting out Hamas right now? They've leveled the entirety of the Gaza Strip. They've leveled it. They've leveled it. The tallest residential buildings in Gaza gone.
We have to go, but Anna's question is super important.
It is super important. Anyone who comes at me with, oh, they're just trying to root out Hamas, when the entirety of the Gaza Strip has been leveled, hospitals, mosques, universities, schools, refugee camps, residential buildings. Really, this is about Hamas, or is it about literally demolishing everything that stood in Gaza in order to clear the way for Israeli settlers to come in and settle that land? Come on, I can't stand the gaslighting. When people from the Israeli government say things out loud on a daily basis, I listen and I believe what they say.
Yeah.
That's it.
And believe what they say in Israel, not in America.
In Israel, Israel, yes.
When they go to their base and they're like, we're playing the Americans, bunch of suckers. We're not gonna leave. No way are we gonna leave. The deal says that they're gonna leave. And Netanyahu turns around and goes, no, I'm lying to the Americans. They're a bunch of idiots. You could lie, it doesn't matter, I can lie 24/7, and then I'll get everybody in corporate media to smear anyone who says I'm lying and call them anti-Semites, ruin their careers, that way we're back in charge. So we just smear everyone in America that opposes us. And by the way, we get to arrest them these days, although now there's a ruling against that. Now, okay, Anna said that point about, wait, how do we confirm that Hamas has surrendered, right? And she's the only one I have heard on cable news ever ask that question. So let's just explore that a tiny bit more. So they say, all right, all of Hamas has to surrender and turn in their weapons, and then we're going to take them out of the country and move them somewhere else. How do we know what's all of Hamas? What if 20 people come out, or 200 or 2,000? How do we know that's all of them? What if they bring in 1 gun or 2 guns? How do you know that's all the guns? How do we ever know it's good enough? Okay, now you guys want to guess if Israel's ever going to say it's good enough? If 20,000 Hamas guys all came out and they laid down 7 different weapons and said, that's it, you can kill us, and I know you're gonna move us to another country and then you're gonna bomb that country, like we don't know. Okay, fine, we allow you to murder us, we're gonna leave, and here's our weapons. You know what Israel's gonna say? Oh no, we think there's 40,000 Hamas fighters and we got to only kill 20,000 of them, so no good. 40,000 come out, no, we think there's 60,000. No. It is purposely impossible because they do not want to get to peace other than a piece of land. That is what they're looking for. That's why Smotrich today was like, what the hell, man? We should have taken Gaza quicker. Now we have international pressure. We should have just slaughtered them and taken Gaza for ourselves already. We're moving too slow in this genocide. So that's the kind of monsters the current government of Israel is. So obviously, totally undoable. Last thing that's really important is, and again, I'm gonna surprise you here. I think Hamas should accept it, okay? So why? So from my perspective, well, I want the hostages back anyway. I don't want Hamas to run Gaza. And most importantly though, it takes away Israel's excuse. Right now, they say, no, we get to kill 80 people a day, 100 people a day, 40 kids a day, whatever the number is. We get to slaughter because of 20 people. 20 hostages equals 20,000 kids, 65,000. We can endlessly slaughter as long as you have 20 hostages. Get the hostages back. Give them back and go, hey, we got a deal, and they said they were gonna leave Israel. It's in the deal, it says. they were gonna leave Gaza, right? Okay, so we all know what's gonna happen. Israel's not gonna leave Gaza. And then you think, oh, well, they gave up the hostages. By the way, they're getting a bunch of prisoners back and hostages back, right? So theoretically, so you get those guys back. I don't really care about them. I mean, I care about the innocent Palestinians that were taken by the Israelis. And so at that point, you expose Israel for who they are. They're not gonna leave, they're never ever going to leave. As long as this current fascist right-wing government of Israel is in place, they have said 1,000,000 times, we want to annihilate the Palestinians and take Gaza as part of Greater Israel. So there is no world in which Netanyahu and this government leaves. So call their bluff and then have the world unite with no excuse left at all for the sick terrorist government of Israel, so we could all come together and say enough. They gave the hostages back. It's 2 years since then. It's obvious that you are the colonial imperial army here that is totally wrong and immoral and sick. And for God's sake, let the Palestinians go. Expose them for who they are. I hope that they take the deal and turn in whatever the hell they got, and we move forward.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the pressure conservatives like Megyn Kelly are facing for refusing to denounce and cut ties with critics of Israel on the right. We'll be right back.
All right, so let's go to YouTube members. Lots of love for Anna out there all across the board. V Kitty Dub says, "Go Anna, go, yes." Then Dragonline69 says, "Wow, Anna looking lovelier than ever." James Mandor writes in, "Anna, can I have my breath back? Beauty."
Yeah, dude, they do something to you in that makeup room. They do something.
Yeah, Patience.
And I love it.
I know, Patience on TYT.com was asking if that was you or CNN, if CNN was gonna wipe that away. No.
I do my own makeup and hair, but then I go to the, for touch up or whatever, and they really like zhuzh me up. Like, I don't know, it's crazy.
All right, God bless. Look, two more and then we're gone. Kiba says, "Anna looking hot." Bach says, "Where in the world is Carmen Anna Diego?" Okay, that's a fun little one. Okay, now Michael Rosa Milia says, "The framers of the Constitution specifically used the word person as opposed to citizen. That was not an accident." That's right. And that's why the courts have always ruled, both the conservatives and the progressives, because the conservatives say original meaning of the Constitution and the intent of the framers. And the framers' intent was crystal clear, persons, not citizens, so it applies to everyone in America. Now on Twitch, Bradshaw Crew of One says, "I love when old white men think they can talk over women, and Anna keeps going. She is #too strong." Yeah, I love that too. Gal471 says, "You have to remember though, Reagan was further to the left in 1980 than Biden was in 2020. There's a lot of truth to that. But of course, no national media reporter noticed that the Overton window has been moved massively to the right wing over these last set of years. I always say mountain chaos, even though I don't think it is. So write in later and tell me what your handle actually means. Anyway, that person wrote in, "Anna, you're such an amazing person for your point of view, and I give you a million kudos for being able to restrain yourself and not punch that self-righteous ass in the nose." Yeah, but I think she kind of brutalized him verbally. Like he got cowed. Yeah, I mean, Anna.
Brutalized, come on.
No, you did. I mean, if you watch that last night, if you have it recorded, watch it. If not, just watch tonight. But last night, she just dominated the panel. And those guys didn't have a chance because Anna knows what she's talking about. She studied this ad nauseum, right? And they just come in with silly talking points, and they're always outraged. Like Anna's like, they bomb all their neighbors. That's a verifiable fact. They bombed 7 nearby countries. And the guy's answer was, "Come on.
I know. Look, I feel bad. Like, I don't want to talk trash about him. Obviously, I disagree with him. He was lovely, okay? Like, he was very nice, very lovely. His name is Pete Seat. He's got a name that rhymes. Who doesn't love that? We just disagree wholeheartedly on Israel. And by the way, at one point on that panel, I was like, we all know the truth. And he kind of did like, he was off camera, but he kind of did a shrug like, yeah. It was amazing.
Everybody knows, but no one's allowed to say it. But now Anna's beginning to say it on CNN. Let's see how long it lasts. Anyway, you're doing amazing. Django Dragon says, "Anna, next time someone asks if you're anti-Israel, ask them if they're anti-Palestine. Would love to see their response." Django Dragon, that's exactly what I was thinking. Anti-Israel, brother, you're anti-Palestine times 1,000. All right, back on TOT, Cenk and Anna and Froyo. Thank you for hitting that join button. We love you for it. Casper.
Well, the pressure is on for some prominent conservatives in right-wing media to essentially sever ties with other conservatives who, in the eyes of Israel supporters, are just not adequately pro-Israel enough.
The behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. I have text messages, Megyn, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. It is dozens of texts.
Yes.
Then we start to say, hold the boat here. And to be fair, some of my really good Jewish friends are like, that's not all of us, it's all, but these are leaders too though, right? These are stakeholders, right?
Well, back in August, Megyn Kelly spoke to Charlie Kirk about some of the extreme pressure that they both were facing in order to agree with anything and everything that the Israeli government demanded of them. And the topic actually came back again yesterday, with Megyn Kelly essentially referencing their exchange on social media. But all that did was lead to a fresh round of backlash toward Kelly, including from a group of vocal critics who absolutely demanded that she disavow Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and essentially sever ties with them. And I have to say, whatever you might think about all the different figures involved in this story, I am gonna give Megyn Kelly major props for her reaction, her response. So we'll get to them in a second, but first, a bit of context. So the right wing has been debating this letter that Charlie Kirk sent to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in May of this year. Now, Netanyahu had referenced that letter, or at least one part of that letter, in interviews that he did shortly after Charlie Kirk was violently and viciously assassinated. And he also claimed that Charlie Kirk was, a huge supporter, highly supportive of Israel. Others like Owens and Carlson, though, disputed that narrative. Okay, so look, I'll give you guys a little bit of background. I don't think that I'm disclosing anything that's not allowed, but if you guys can remember, I was on Tucker Carlson's show at one point this year, and I got a text message from Tucker Carlson shortly after it aired. And he told me that Charlie Kirk loved it. He thought it was an excellent conversation, and Charlie would like you to go on his show to talk about these issues. And so it was basically Tucker's way of letting me know that Charlie Kirk liked what I had to say about Israel and wanted to discuss it further on his podcast. Now, obviously, I hadn't gone on Charlie Kirk's podcast before he was assassinated, but I do think that he had criticisms of what Israel is carrying out in Gaza. He had been on the record, he was very vocal against invading Iran for a regime change war. Now, the full letter has come out and I've read it. And to be honest with you, that letter does not make it appear as though Charlie Kirk hated Netanyahu. But there had been other criticisms that he had either uttered himself, not as strongly in terms of criticism, but he had slowly but surely started criticizing some of the conduct of the Israeli government. That's not really shocking or surprising if you've been paying attention to this story. Now, in that letter, for the most part, Kirk shied away from any strong criticism of Israel. Instead, he advised Netanyahu and his government to essentially work on social media outreach in order to stop young conservative Americans from turning against Israel. And so yesterday, Kelly posted about her conversation with Kirk, writing, "The Charlie Kirk letter to Bibi is interesting for obvious reasons, but if you want to hear Charlie in his own words speaking to a friend regarding his feelings on Israel and the pressure on him, it's all here on August 6th. No filter needed. Just listen to him." And he was very upset in that conversation because he felt that the criticism that he had leveled against the Israeli government had led to smears against him, allegations that he's anti-Semitic. You get the picture. But rather than address the substance of Megyn Kelly's post, she was told by multiple people that she has to absolutely wash her hands of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. So here's one of the responses. Florida Dad wrote on X, "If you can't separate yourself from Candace Owens, many of us are going to separate ourselves from you. We do not have to align with everyone that claims to be of the right when their motives and history are as shady as hers." And Kelly actually responded to that post in particular, saying, "Look at this. No, I have no obligation to separate myself from anyone. I run my own media company and my own show. That show is where I express my own opinions, and I will decide what not to opine on. If you need me to condemn Candace or Tucker for their opinions in order to listen to me, then I may not be for you. He's a close friend and she is under enough pressure without gratuitous shots from me. My fight is with the left, not these two." I didn't like that very last part. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. So let's have a discussion about what suits Americans as opposed to what's the best for Israel and Israel supporters. But nonetheless, overall, I really appreciated that message. She caught some heat from others as a result of that response. I'll go to that in a minute, but Cenk, I wanted to get your thoughts first.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts, but I'm also curious about the audience's thoughts here because we've got an interesting live audience that's mixed politics. So we're doing something on the live chat, and I like it when you guys are part of the show. Will Megyn Kelly gain or lose support because of this? Okay, and I'm curious what you guys think of that. I think if she sticks with it, and there's an interesting update here about a rumor regarding Megyn Kelly that I'm going to get to in a second. But if she sticks with the stance, I think she'll gain support. In fact, to that point, Anna, I think that the Florida dad guy and all those things, other than a couple of folks who are actual influencers that we know their names and they stand with Israel, etc. I think all the rest of them, I don't think they're real right wingers. I mean, they might be right wingers who are pro-Israel, but they're mainly Israel firsters, right? So the Israel first crowd does this hilarious thing where they're like, well, everyone on the right loves Israel. And so if you're criticizing Israel, or you're not condemning Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens for criticizing Israel, then you know what? All of the right wing is gonna leave you. All right, well, let's see how that turns out. Our audience is guessing that 71, 72% of you that they're not going to leave, that she's going to gain support for not criticizing Tucker and Candace, etc. Right? And that's exactly what Netanyahu's in a panic over. He's like, oh, we're losing them, right? So there was a rumor today, and which she vehemently denies, and I hope that she's telling the truth, and it's her denial made me believe that she is telling the truth. That CBS was going to offer her a large contract. Now, remember, CBS bought by pro-Israel zealots, and they also bought free press and they said they said in the New York Post that they're overpaying for free press because they're pro-Israel, right? So now if they go around and go, hey, you know what? We know how to stem the tide. We'll grab Megyn Kelly and a couple other big right wingers because we really need to hold the wall on the right wing. And we'll just bribe them. We'll give them 20 million, 40 million a year, and it seems like a normal contract. They used to have those kind of giant contracts in TV back in the day when TV made a lot of money. Nobody will notice, but that way we'll say, hey, you know what? Oh, we are not telling you to be pro-Israel. We are just saying we are going to give you a lot of money, right? Just like we did with free press. But Megyn Kelly says, no, that rumor's nonsense. I didn't go to CBS. They didn't make an offer, etc. But I am a little worried that that's the next strategy. But there is one strategy they're getting massively wrong, Anna. And this whole thing of like that they've done to the left for the entirety of our lives. Like if you criticize Israel an inch, anti-Semite, cancel them, fire them, right? And then later arrest, deport, etc. Now, when you do it to the right, you're doing it to the wrong hombres. Guys who've been called racist and this and sexist and every other word 1,000 times over. That stuff bounces off of them. In fact, it makes them hate you. So Israel,
that's a good point.
Please do us a favor and keep calling Megyn Kelly and Tucker and everyone else anti-Semites. Call all the right-wing influencers anti-Semites, because then the country will be in favor of like 90% in favor of the Palestinians within a couple of months. And that's partly what's spreading this like wildfire. They don't realize that they're adding fuel to the fire. They're like, oh, now all of you right-wingers, you're all terrible people. You hate Jews. You are full of hate. We should cancel you, right? Good luck with that strategy. I think that's a terrible strategy. I probably shouldn't say anything. Oh no, Israel, please do not do that.
I know, it's just so short-sighted. And I think part of the problem for Israelis who carry out that tactic is it worked for so long because it's always been the left side of the political aisle that's been critical of Israel's conduct and treatment of the Palestinian people. Now you have a growing number of right-wing voices who are willing to speak out against it, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, obviously Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. Megyn Kelly is still very much supportive of Israel, but she was willing to float the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad asset, as did Charlie Kirk, by the way. And so I think you make a really great point about how calling them anti-Semites or Jew haters isn't going to work the same way that it has for the left. In fact, it's probably gonna have the opposite reaction. But in regard to the reactions to Megyn Kelly's response, to calls to sever her relationship with Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, Jonah Goldberg says, so you will condemn anti-Semites on the left, not because they're anti-Semites, but because they're on the left. but you won't condemn anti-Semites who are on the right or your friends because they're not. Okay, at least that's a position, I guess. I don't think she actually believes, as I'm in the same camp, by the way, she doesn't believe that Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite. I don't believe for a second that Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite. I just don't. I think Tucker Carlson cares about the United States. I think like any other human being who sees endless videos and photos of little children maimed and slaughtered, he's had a negative reaction to that. And it's not about identity. It's not about religion. It's not about the Jews. It's about a specific Israeli government that is completely unhinged and carrying out atrocities with impunity. And he's willing to speak out against that. And the idea that he should be smeared as an anti-Semite for having a problem with a country that uses our weapons to carry out said atrocities is insane to me. So I'm glad that Megyn Kelly isn't falling for that trap. Joel Berry responds, loyalty to friends above all else is an admirable trait. I actually agree with that. It makes you a good friend. I'm not sure that's a luxury afforded to trustworthy journalists, though. Well, Joel, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. For me, the fact that she's unwilling to disavow and sever ties with people who she probably doesn't even think are anti-Semitic because they're not is a good thing. And then we'll end with this exchange between Kelly and Konstantin Kisin, who of course is very supportive of the Israeli state. He says, the problem with this approach, which many on the right are taking, is that this is exactly how the left allowed its own extremists to first flourish and then to become the face of the entire movement. If you agree with Candace and Tucker, people will respect that. But to many of us, their behavior is so extreme and so deranged that the idea that it can be simply ignored because your fight is with the left doesn't wash. So I'm curious, Konstantin, a video went viral yesterday featuring a doctor at Nasser Hospital getting shot and killed with a drone attack. He got shot through a hospital window. The Israelis used a drone to do it. There's video. He's a doctor. He was in the hospital working. Is that not extreme and deranged? And more importantly, why don't you ever speak out about those atrocities? Because I sure as hell believe that you would speak out against that atrocity if it was committed by Hamas. If Hamas had that type of weaponry and did the same thing to an Israeli doctor inside an Israeli hospital, I would speak out against that atrocity because that's a disgusting act. But for some reason, it's more important to hear Megyn Kelly disavow other right-wing voices because they're not playing along with this dog and pony show in regard to the Israeli government and their military operations in Gaza and the West Bank. Yeah. And then she responded with, the more, oh God, I love, this is like my favorite tweet of hers of all time because it resonates with me so much. The more one insists that I say what one demands me to, the more committed I get in my refusal. I need everyone to put that in their pipe and smoke it, not just in regard to this context and this story, but just in general as it pertains to, yes, Megyn Kelly, but also me. Back to you, Cenk.
Yeah, so a lot to say about this. So I saw the same video of the doctor. He got shot in the head, by the way. Israel didn't claim he's a terrorist or anything. They're like, no, we're just randomly executing doctors in Gaza. By the way, it's a twofer. Not only do you murder the doctor, but you also prevent him from treating injured Palestinians and kids and stuff like that, so they can die too. The Israeli government at this point are obvious terrorists. They have a worse civilian kill ratio than Hamas does, and they've killed 500 times the number of children. So it is a terrorist state right now, and if you're offended by that and want to call me an anti-Semite, I laugh at you. I laugh at you at the top of my lungs. I think you're a buffoon who's a racist and a bigot against Palestinians, and you don't mind them being murdered, and I find you to be morally repugnant. So what's interesting to me is that the right wing hasn't experienced this at all. Like, that's such an amazing thing. Like, we've experienced it our whole lives because I guess they've never ever criticized Israel before. And there's a reason why, I'm gonna get to that in a second. But now that for the first time, they just smidge of criticism to Israel, boom, they get hit with the same blast of, you're an anti-Semite, cancel them, ruin them, right? And they're like, whoa, what is this? Well, welcome to our world. That's the world we've been living in this whole time. And so thank you for mustering up the courage to criticize a foreign government, especially when you're on the right. That should be a relatively easy ask. But no, Constantine and others say there should be an exception for Israel. So cancel culture is terrible, terrible, unless you're doing it for Israel. Then of course, cancel culture is the best. Cancel anyone who criticizes Israel. Anti-Semitic, cancel, right? So that we're totally used to it. And Constantine, you could do, and look, there's some small number of things I agree and respect Constantine on. There's a lot of things we disagree on, but this opinion is ridiculous. And by the way, does not speak for the right wing at all. That's the other thing that's so arrogant about the Israeli supporters. They're like, I will speak on behalf of the whole country and the right wing. We all think that everyone who disagrees is an anti-Semite. You don't speak for anyone, dude. Look at the polls, look at the polls. You lost the right wing, you lost the left wing. And now, this important thing that they're doing here is another tactic, again, the left is very used to, and now the right is beginning to find out about. Smear by proxy. Oh, Tucker said something that Jonah Goldberg thought was anti-Semitic. Ooh, okay, wow, I'll have to take that under consideration. So that means Megyn Kelly, you are smeared by proxy. Why? Did you say Tucker Carlson's the greatest thing ever? No. No, you have to actively disavow him. Why do they do that? Because they want to isolate anyone who criticizes Israel and make them feel toxic and untouchable, so that no one agrees with them, and then they could cancel the hell out of them and eject them from the national conversation. So this is like Israeli propaganda 101. And if you're on the right wing and you're now experiencing this for the first time, give me a call. I'll tell you the whole playbook they're gonna run against you, okay?
Totally.
And how they're gonna try to ruin your career and your life. Everybody in mainstream media knows it. That's why they never criticize Israel. Why do you think do you think every cable news anchor is a monster who thinks murdering 20,000 Palestinian kids is no big deal? No, they all know it's terrible, but they're scared to death of losing their multi-million-dollar job because there's a bunch of thugs inside this country that are pro-Israel and are on a warpath to eliminate anyone who disagrees. Now, finally, guys, the most important thing here is why Megyn Kelly is refusing their demands. And Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly have made reference to this before. They said when they were on Fox News, it was different. Why is it different? Now, I'll explain to you why it's different. Because at Fox News, you have a $20 million contract. And Rupert Murdoch loves and serves Israel. So, you know, if you criticize Israel, you're gonna lose your $20 million a year contract. So that, shh. But now that they run their own company, as she said, in their own show, they have to serve the audience. So if they say things that are popular, they make more money. If they say things that are unpopular, they make less money. They have less viewers, etc. So now their incentives are in the right place. Make your actual audience happy, not some rando foreign government, because your boss, a media executive, loves Israel, right? By the way, Rupert Murdoch is not Jewish, so this has nothing to do with religion. There's a bunch of people who are pro-Israel in this country that are such giant zealots that they will eliminate anyone on behalf of Israel. But now they can't eliminate Megyn Kelly. She has her own show. They can't eliminate Tucker. They can't eliminate us. And it's driving them crazy. And I love it. That's right, Anna. Freedom. Hashtag freedom.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what the public opinion polls are showing us about American sentiment as it pertains to Israel and its military operations in the Middle East.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to our members. Wang Jun says, you know what's so messed up? When Cenk mentioned the video of the doctor getting shot yesterday, my first thought was, which one? Of course, hundreds of doctors have been murdered by Israel. And by the way, thousands of kids killed, as you know, tens of thousands. But American doctors reporting back, as we've told you many times, sniper shots to the head and to the chest. And now you're seeing it on video of people getting Israeli snipers and Israeli drones just murdering civilians ad nauseum. It's not at all an exaggeration. It is a terrorist state by every definition.
I wanted to add something, but I didn't want to belabor the story. But in regard to this pressure campaign to get Megyn Kelly to disavow, like to publicly condemn Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, that tactic is real. And they use that tactic with literally any critic of Israel or any family member of a critic of Israel. There's been a pressure campaign on my husband to put out a public statement condemning me, which would be the biggest cuck move of all time. I am so proud of him for not being a cuck. I'd be so turned off by that. I wouldn't even be angry, okay? There would never be a lady boner for him again. Like it'd be over. Just keeping it 100.
So, but look,
think about the balls. Think about the balls someone has to demand that a husband condemn his own wife. Disgusting. Disgusting.
Yeah, the people who are look, anyway, I'm gonna leave it alone because they're vicious. Yeah. They're bullies, they're thugs, and they think they're so self-righteous. They're like, we're fighting anti-Semites. They hate Jews so much, they don't want us to murder 20,000 kids. Can you believe how much they hate Jews? No, guys, stop smearing all Jews. Stop it. You're driving up anti-Semitism. None of my Jewish friends got a call from Mossad. Oh, and the IDF, should we keep killing kids? And they said, oh yeah, go ahead, do it. It's not Jews, it's not. Shut up. It's about Israel. The more you defend Israel, the more you dig in and you go, no, if you criticize Israel, then you hate all Jews. Guys, Israel is a monstrous state right now. If you equate them to Jews, you're doing grave damage. But no, those blind thugs never see it. Oh, no, cancel. You have to denounce your wife. Otherwise, they're gonna fire you. By the way, we're the good guys. Are you? You don't look like the good guys at all. All right, anyway, Mountain Chaos says, Cenk was wondering if you still call people who donate $100. I donated 125 when I signed up, but will gladly donate another 100 for the privilege to talk to you, my friend. Well, you're wonderful for that. And look, it's complicated, but yes, I do call folks who give over 100, and it's mainly to connect with you guys and to hear your perspective. I haven't done it in a little while, but I'm definitely gonna go back to it. You're wonderful for offering. tyt.com/join. Jack Callahan says, finally a judge stands up for the rights inherent in the Constitution. We need much more. Michael Napin says, my moment of joy today is seeing Anna taking over CNN. Her take, and of course, TYT as lead, hashtag Anna everywhere, hashtag Operation Joy. And yes, we'll be doing Operation Joy in the bonus episode for members. Ben Jama says, yay, Casper, the awesome journalist is back. Salt of the Union says, while I like what he did, it's depressing that we still have Reagan appointees around. Well, that we're gonna have to get used to. And Adele Q says, thank you for standing up for Palestinians, Anna. That's in the YouTube member section. And we'll pause right there. We'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna. I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna do it. Rouseabouter wrote on Twitch, Tucker cares about America. Bad take, Anna. He cares about his own ass. He just happens to be decent at reading the room. Rouseabouter, here's my point to you. Who cares? What are you talking about? So the guy's against the genocide. He's trying to stop a genocide. Are we supposed to stop him in the middle of that and go, no, we still hate you. Boo you. Don't agree with us. Boo. No, he cares about America in his own way. And so some of that we disagree with, some of that we agree with. But if it's the part where he goes, I care about America enough that I don't want us doing whatever Israel commands us of us, including paying for a genocide, take yes for an answer, especially on this issue. For God's sake, take yes for an answer. Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about why there's been this intense campaign to prevent anyone from being overtly critical of the Israeli government. So you might be wondering why there's this intense effort to silence any criticism of a foreign country, of the Israeli government. Well, it might have to do with the fact that more and more polling seems to indicate that ordinary Americans have really soured on the Israeli government. In fact, I want to go to this Politico piece that kind of goes in depth on this issue titled, An Entire Generation of Americans is Turning on Israel. So this deep dive explains how young Americans are becoming less and less likely to support Israel. And according to Pew Research from this past March, more than half of American adults, 53%, now have an unfavorable opinion of Israel, and only 32% have confidence in Netanyahu. I would venture to say that 32% having confidence in Netanyahu, too high, go down, lower. That guy is a complete monster, okay? That's not to say anything of the Israeli people, but in terms of that one individual, he is a monster. And unfortunately, that current government has monsters that are actually even worse than him. Bezalel Smotrich, Ben Gvir, you guys get the point. Now, this is a bipartisan phenomenon, which is a pretty new development. So fully 71% of Democrats under 50 have an unfavorable view of Israel. In the last 3 years, the share of Republicans under 50 years old who have negative views of Israel jumped from 35% to 50%. So Gabe I'm not going to say that name correctly, so I'm just going to move on. This is a senior in college and a conservative. He told Politico that there is a belief that this conflict really is not benefiting the American people, and our involvement in it is not benefiting the American people either. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Similarly, a young Democrat who happens to be studying at UC San Diego said that we've witnessed an allied relationship that isn't largely fair. I'm guessing that this student is specifically referring to the fact that we keep shelling out tens of billions of dollars for Israel's war efforts when we're drowning in debt. We keep accumulating debt on behalf of a foreign government. And as young Americans become less supportive of Israel, young Israelis are actually moving further to the right. So these two things are happening simultaneously. 58% of Jewish Israelis define themselves as right-wing in a 2024 survey by the Israel Democracy Institute. Only 46% of Jewish Israelis identified that way in April of 2019. Israel's population is also growing more religious, with nearly 25% of Israelis on track to be ultra-Orthodox by 2050. And look, again, Israel is a foreign country, and whatever they engage in their own actual green line borders, I don't care. I don't care about their political identity. I just don't think that the US taxpayer should be forced to bankroll any atrocity they decide to carry out in the Middle East. And I say Middle East because let's not forget, they have bombed several countries, and not just in the Middle East, by the way. So we know that they've gone after Yemen, they've gone after Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Tunisia, the list goes on and on. With young Israelis moving further right, young Americans growing more disaffected with the far right Israeli government. Even Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is acknowledging that Israel might have to make do without so much international support, even from the United States, saying that we have no choice. At least for the coming years, we have to cope with these attempts at isolation, and we must first develop the ability to manage on our own. I agree, you definitely should find ways to manage on your own, and the US should no longer provide military or financial support to the Israeli government.
Yeah, here's what I love. Everyone's getting caught. So soon the whole country is gonna realize it's not just Israel. The corporate donors, different foreign governments, any big giant donors, they're all buying our politicians. Before, mainstream media did a great job, a legendary job at suppressing that fact. And whenever you would say it, although no one ever said it in mainstream media, they would say, oh, that sounds conspiratorial. You think just because oil companies gave $1 million to this politician, that's why they voted to give oil companies $35 billion in subsidies? That sounds so crazy and conspiratorial. No, that's obvious. You'd have to be a moron to think, oh, a politician got $1 million in campaign contributions and he didn't do what his donors asked. And by the way, if you're in mainstream media and you have all these cases of where they didn't do what the donors asked, go ahead and share them. Prove your case that our politicians are so honest and wonderful people, etc. But in the past, before online media, which I love it with a passion, okay? And all the smears of mainstream media, they have disinformation and misinformation on there. No, we have the correct objective information. Israel is God. Anyone who criticizes them should be fired and their life should be ruined. You see how objective we are? Okay. Hey guys, on mainstream media, does that apply to any other country? No, shut up. It doesn't apply to any other country. Only Israel. It seems like you're a little biased. You're anti-Semite. Fire them. Okay. So now, because of online media, everyone's getting caught. Everyone's getting caught. So big oil, you're gonna come, your day's gonna come. Big Pharma, your day's gonna come soon, okay? But for now, we're on Israel. Because Israel's saying you owe us. You gave us $310 billion so far, not enough. You gave us $18 billion during Biden so we could kill more Palestinians, not enough. Now we told Trump, you give us another 6, and then the other day, another 7. Just keep on giving. You owe us. You owe us. And if you don't give me your money, you hate people. And you're a racist anti-Semite. Well, keep going, brothers and sisters. Soon you'll have zero support in America, okay? Because now you're caught. Then why do you think these numbers are moving that much? It's not even the left wing, it's the right wing. The left wing's gone already, 92-8. Oh, and that includes tons and tons of young Jews, most of the young Jewish Americans. Why? They're Americans, they love peace. They're for nonviolence. And they don't.
I think they're anti-Semites.
No, of course. By the way, they do say that. I mean, the
That's
older.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. That's insane.
No,
That's insane. Nothing, it's so crazy.
No, there's nothing that you could do for pro-Israel zealots where they wouldn't call you an anti-Semite. Like they'll call rabbis anti-Semites. Remember that group that was before Canary Mission that had a list of 8,000 Jewish Americans that they were targeting because they would criticize Israel, and they called them self-hating Jews and tried to get them fired and ruin their lives.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting.
Okay.
It really is.
Yeah, so now you see it in the polls. The right wing's going, yeah, I don't care what you call me. In fact, the more you call me that, the more I'm gonna hate Israel, okay? So since they're a one-trick pony and the only thing they know is call someone an anti-Semite and try to ruin their life, be a bully and a thug inside America on behalf of a foreign government, that's the only trick they know. So now that trick has been exposed, they're caught, and now everybody's looking at them that isn't some paid off by Israel or some pro-Israel zealot, and we're all looking at them like, guys, we can see you now. Like you think we can't see you, but you're right there. And you look ridiculous. And we're not listening to a goddamn thing you say anymore.
All right, final thing I'll say before we go to break. We're massively out of time. There's been this new weird accusation / talking point that I'm seeing repeated over and over again by bots and by some of the prominent Israel supporters. They accuse anyone who's critical of Israel of being obsessed with Israel. And I want to respond to that accusation. It's true. I'm obsessed with Israel. As long as Israel's taking our money, as long as we, the American people, have blood on our hands for supporting a literal genocide being carried out in the Middle East, yeah, I'm definitely obsessed with Israel.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
And by the way, they say that, well, what, you're not obsessed with Israel? That's the only thing you care about, man.
I know.
They're all like, oh my God, somebody has criticized Israel. Cancel them, right? And they're like, cancel, anti-Semite, right? No. And then they go, you're obsessed with Israel. Brother, the only thing you care about is Israel. Israel above all. You'd put Israel above every living creature on earth. And we're obsessed with Israel? We just don't want you to use our money to commit a genocide. And by the way, 58 years of brutal occupation. Israel has been abusing 5.5 million Palestinian hostages for 58 years. When is it gonna be enough, you disgusting racists?
All right, when we come back, we are actually gonna switch gears and talk about something a little different. We have Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who doesn't exactly have such a clear, clean past when it comes to optics, fat shaming our military generals. I'm sure that'll work out well. We'll be right back.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Rich and powerful men abusing, assaulting, and abandoning young women. These rich and powerful men donate to the politicians in Washington, D.C., play golf with the elites in Washington, D.C. They are foreign leaders who we don't want to offend. They interact with our intelligence agencies that we don't want to disobey. There is something rotten in Washington.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
All those congressmen you just saw there are on the record as protecting the child rapists who were clients of Epstein. They have not prosecuted a single person outside of Epstein and Maxwell.
Yep.
Not one.
Is Trump engaging in this cover-up because he's in the Epstein files?
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
So as the government keeps telling us, yeah, there's other people. Yeah, they raped those girls. So what? We're gonna cover up for them. But why are you guys so mad?
A nation that chooses impunity for the rich and the powerful at the expense of our children is a nation that has lost its moral purpose. Are you on the side of the people? Are you on the side of America's children? Or are you on the side of the rich and powerful who've had their thumb on the scales and shafted Americans for decades?
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one. In a media landscape poisoned by corporate influence, only one show stands apart from the rest, The Young Turks. As the longest running daily news show on the internet, The Young Turks is an impactful voice of unfiltered truth, one you can trust to deliver the daily news with authenticity and honesty. For nearly 2 decades, TYT has been breaking the mold of media. We're not here to echo the powerful or the elite, we're here to challenge them. Our mission is to give you accurate news, fight the establishment, and cover stories that mainstream media keeps you in the dark about, which matter to your everyday life. We've remained a leader in online news because of our established credibility with an engaged audience looking for alternative media that represents the real concerns of everyday Americans. Listen to The Young Turks, a news show that only answers to you on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
How do you know if you're a populist? Easy. Do you work for the donor class? You don't? Great, you're a populist. Okay, so the establishment takes money from the donors and serves the donors. Mainstream media takes money from advertisers, and they are giant corporations themselves, and they work for themselves, and they work for the powerful. If you care about the average person, and you want the average person to have better health care, better wages, a better life, and you hate corruption, congrats, you're a populist.
Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Crusader of Cuddles. Thank you for gifting a membership.
Ooh, yeah. I like that.
The handle started out questionable, but ended really strong. Okay.
And sweet.
Yes, indeed. All right, what's next, Anna?
We got to talk about this Pete Hegseth story, which I don't know whether to laugh or cry. And you know what? I'm going to give you the details. You can decide.
We became the woke department, but not anymore. At the War Department, first and foremost, we must restore a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards. It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. The era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now. But if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, who was literally an alcoholic Fox News host like yesterday, chided the country's top generals and admirals about how woke and weak the military has become during a gathering in Quantico, Virginia. And Cenk, before we get to the nitty-gritty of the story, the important, pertinent details, how many times did Secretary of War Pete Hegseth practice that speech in front of a mirror?
Over under is 21. So look, at first I thought it was kind of funny, like him calling the generals fat and stuff. We'll give you all the details. But I now understand why they're doing it, because I thought this is weird to yell at the generals. But I think there's a secret reason why, and it's partly has to do with the clip you just saw. But we'll talk about it in a second.
So he is asserting that all politically correct woke ideology that he thinks, he's pointing to woke ideology and politically correct behavior as why the military has decayed. Has the military decayed over wokeness? Because if I'm not mistaken, sexual assault and rape in our military has continued to go unaddressed. That's not exactly what I would put in the category of woke, but nonetheless, let's hear him make his case.
The military has been forced by foolish and reckless politicians to focus on the wrong things. In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay. For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts. Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department, but not anymore. This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that.
You know, those mini skirt clad soldiers of ours really did turn out to be a big problem, Cenk. They really did. And I'm glad that this important issue is currently being addressed. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, before we couldn't blow up Venezuelan fishermen with the kind of efficiency that we do now. So look, in some ways, Anna, I think that maybe he's doing us a favor accidentally, because when they go to do terrible things, we want the generals to draw a line and say, no, you're not gonna trample on the Constitution. No, I'm not gonna prioritize you over the Constitution. No, I'm gonna follow my oath of office, which is about the Constitution and not to an individual. So him sitting there trying to shame these generals when he was like, forget the alcoholic part. Brother, you were a Fox News weekend host like a minute ago, and you're lecturing them, guys who've had 30, 40 years experience, probably a lot of them saw significant battle, etc. They're gonna hate this speech. It doesn't, I don't think.
Oh yeah.
Even if you're on the right, and then so first of all, imagine that you're in the audience and he's like, there's DEI that prioritize people based on race or gender. Imagine you're a female colonel or you're a black general. How are you gonna feel in that speech? You're gonna despise it. But that's not all. Then he gets to like overweight people. I mean, he alienated almost everyone in the room, right?
Okay, we got to get to that because I have the sound. Okay, so why don't we go to that? Because go ahead, Cenk. Finish the thought, and we'll go to that video.
Yeah, because guys, I want you to. So that seems like a really good thing that he's alienating the entire military when at some point they might need them. But after we watch the rest of this, I'm gonna come back and tell you what I think they're planning and why now I'm a little worried about it.
Yeah, and guys, I also want to kind of draw a distinction between what he's saying and what I think could be a problem in the military, right? Like if you are in the military and you're like language policing, and like, I don't think that is gonna fly in the military. And to be honest with you, I don't even know how much of a problem that is. But in the mind of someone like Pete Hegseth, women should never see combat. They shouldn't ever be on the front lines. And my view is do not lower any of the standards. But if a woman goes through the physical tests and is physically capable to be in combat, then why not allow that to happen? So there are some ideological differences here because he sees gender roles as very rigid and very traditional. But that's not the only problem he's got, because the other problem he has with the military is that he just thinks, people are a little too pudgy, a little too rotund for the military, apparently. Let's watch.
It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations or really any formation and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done.
Mitch, have you done hot yoga? Seriously, I know that yoga in the minds of anyone who's never done it is like, oh, it's so easy. You're just stretching. My body was transformed through hot yoga, literally, okay? I became lean, I became strong. I'm just bored with it, so I don't do it anymore. And I'm seeing the negative outcome of that. But hot yoga is so difficult. The fact that he's downplaying that as if it's not real exercise is crazy to me. Anyway, Cenk, what do you think? What do you think about the allegedly fat generals that love hot yoga, apparently?
Yeah, I think that his critique of hot yoga was not high on my list of problems with this speech. But his insults to the generals were. So first of all, he calls people with beards beardos, as in weirdos. I like. Yeah.
No, I give him a pass on that. Beardo sounds great.
Yeah, no, here's who's not gonna give him a pass on that. Some general who had a beard 3 years ago or 11 years ago, just for fun for a second, right? Because they're a normal human being. And they're like, now I'm a weirdo because I had a beard once? Who is this guy? And why am I listening to this idiot, right? And then when you get to the overweight stuff, really the generals were mainly doing hot yoga and stretching? That was the problem with our military? Really, do you even have one general who's done hot yoga or stretching? Why are you weirdly insulting these people? Okay, so here's my theory. They don't want any dissent. So when they order the military into the streets, and as Trump said, use full force against the American people, and today in that same get together, Trump then spoke, and he talked about unleashing the troops and using American cities as, quote, training grounds for our military. No, our military is trained to defeat an enemy. The reason why we don't let them operate inside the United States, and there's laws against that, is because we don't want them treating US citizens as the enemy. And now Trump and Hegseth are saying, no, that's it. You're gonna listen to every word we say. No one is allowed to dissent, and you'll be fired if you do. And so when we order you to treat Americans as the enemy, you treat them as the enemy, or otherwise you're a beardo who does hot yoga and I'm gonna fire you, right?
Okay, yeah, it's crazy. No, but Cenk, we have to go to Trump's speech and what Trump had to say, because I know you're referencing it, but I want the audience to hear with their own 2 ears, because Trump's very first comment during his address to over 800 commanders was how the audience, again, filled with military brass, really did something terrible to him. Let's see what that was.
I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very, don't laugh, you're not allowed to do that. You know what, just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future.
Well, who are you, Jeb Bush? Please clap? Is that what that was? That was a please clap moment. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
No, yeah, he's so insecure, guys. How do you not see it if you're on the right? How do you not see it? You're too quiet. Why didn't I get applause? Please clap. And then you're allowed to laugh. And then a bunch of kiss asses in the front laughing. You notice all of the people we were seeing in the back, none of them were laughing. And he went on to like continue to insult them and go off on like these tangents about how he needs the Nobel Peace Prize, doesn't want it, but needs it for America, blah, blah, blah. But Anna, what I'm worried about is they're saying if you dissent, we're gonna get rid of you. And if you notice in the first clip, Hegseth said, if you don't like any of this, resign. I think that they're trying to egg some of these generals to resign so there'll be less people dissenting when they ask them to do unconstitutional things.
Right, but they would be part of the resistance if S hits the fan, if you will. And look, you're right, because during Trump's address, during his speech, he wanted to justify military action, telling Pentagon leaders to handle the enemy from within. The enemy from within are Americans. Take a look.
We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy. I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. Last month I signed an executive order to provide training for a quick reaction force that can help quell civil disturbances. This is going to be a big thing for the people in this room because it's the enemy from within, and we have to handle it before it gets out of control. It won't get out of control. Once you get involved at all. You saw it in Washington. We had gangs of Tren de Arag with 10, 12, 15 kids. And these military guys walk up to them and they treat them with disrespect and they just got pounded. They just got pounded. The gang just pounded. Then thrown into paddy wagons and taken back to their country.
So just to reiterate, the president of the United States sees Americans who he is supposed to serve as president of the United States, as a public servant, as the enemy from within, that he wants to sick the military, which receives almost $1 trillion a year in taxpayer money, on Americans that he doesn't like. Look, I don't care where you are on the political spectrum, okay? If this were a Democratic president, speaking of sicking our military against conservative or Republican Americans, I would be just as livid. This is a disgusting thing to call for, and clearly he wants it. Clearly he wanted to declare martial law during his first term as the BLM protests and riots were taking place. Luckily, members of his administration said, we will quit on the spot if you do that. And so he backed away from that idea. But now he's surrounded by sycophants. He's surrounded by idiots like Pete Hegseth. And that's concerning. That's concerning to say the least. So this is the part of the story that is very worrying for me, regardless of how dopey and hilarious Pete Hegseth's part of this whole event was. This is revealing what Trump really wants to do. And if you love this country and you believe in protecting this country, you wouldn't be cheering on a president that wants to literally use the United States military against its own people.
Yeah, so there's an article the other day about how Stephen Miller's actually running the country. And this is another Stephen Miller 101 thing. But Trump is also totally part of it. Trump, every time he views the military as like his toys, like the GI Joes. Oh, I want to have them on a parade and I want to use them in the cities. But we don't use American military against American citizens. That's not what we do. He's like, I don't like it. I'm the king. No, but brother, you're not a king. You're the president. That's not how it works. This talk is super ugly. I agree 100% with Anna. And you guys have seen us prove our consistency and our principles for the last 20 years, whether it's a Democrat or Republican president. If a Democratic president started talking about the right wing as the enemy within, I'd say, what are you, nuts? Like, look, if you need me to criticize the right wing on issues we disagree on, you came to the right place. And I could do it, and I could do it at the top of my lungs. But they are not the enemy within. They're Americans we disagree with. And in democracy, you're always gonna have people you disagree with, and you're also gonna have a lot of people you vehemently disagree with. We handle that in a democracy through elections, through votes, through debates, arguments. We don't cancel one another. We don't end anyone's speech. We don't use the military to attack our fellow citizens. He says we're under invasion from an enemy within. How can you be under an invasion from people who are already here and US citizens? That doesn't even make any sense. That is brazenly saying, I'm going to treat my political opponents as a foreign enemy. By the way, a foreign government, on the other hand, will be in charge. And if you criticize them, you'll also be arrested and maybe deported. So foreign governments like Israel, awesome, you all serve them. But if you're an American citizen that is my political opponent, that's it, you're enemy within. And why are we, like, there's a national emergency that you have to bring the military? He keeps talking about Portland. Like, if you said, hey, Portland's kind of a mess when there was those giant protests and they took over the streets and the police department, etc. Well, not only would we have agreed with you, we did agree with you. I didn't say bring in the military, but at the time we're like, guys, this is crazy. You can't take over police departments. This can't work. This is wrong, right? But now, Portland, what emergency? What are you talking about? What on God's green earth are you talking about? So he'll use any excuse to try to bring in the military so that no one is allowed to disagree with him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, Cenk is going to spend a few minutes reading your feedback and your comments. And then later in the show, what I'm really looking forward to talking about is what Trump's former campaign manager is up to. Turns out he's now a foreign agent. We'll tell you who he is and what he's up to. And Don Lemon has some thoughts that I vehemently disagree with. So we'll talk about that as well. Come right back.
All right, back on TYT. South writes in on Super Chat, full-blood Palestinian, both parents and grandparents, born in America. I lived during the Intifada, witnessed it all, and have been back in Miami for 15 years. Thank you as an American Palestinian for standing up for my people. No problem, it's easy for us. We stand up for everybody. And so when black people were being abused in this country by police, we stood up for them. And you know, people are super nice, but it's kind of a sad thing about humanity, because I remember when we're fighting to get justice for Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, etc. Black folks would come up to me and hug me and say, "Thank you for fighting for us when you're not one of us." And now sometimes Palestinians say that, others say that, and it's kind of an indictment of humanity. We should all be fighting for one another, for justice. Who cares where you're from, right? We're all human beings, we're all brothers and sisters, and here in America, we're all Americans, and we got to look out for each other. But anyway, thank you, brother, for saying that. I appreciate it. And the Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian communities have been amazing to us, have been wonderful. So it's an honor to be able to be, in some ways, your voice. And if they said to me when I was starting my career, hey, you're gonna have a lot of trouble, this, that, and the other thing, you're constantly gonna be under attack, you're gonna have financial issues, blah, blah, blah. But you're gonna be a voice for the voiceless during a genocide, I would have said, deal, I'll take it in a second. So if we are that in any way, shape, or form, then we've done our job right. And I appreciate anyone who says that deeply. All right, Andre Rabi, thank you for the donation on Super Chat. DJ Payne wrote in, every day I learn something new and listen to be better. I truly appreciate how you all fight for all people and give the unfiltered facts to bring people on all sides together, which mainstream news media fails to do. Thank you for saying that. Elvin Torres says, I voted for Trump and still support almost everything he has accomplished so far. But on Israel, I agree with Cenk 100%. He has been dog-walked by Netanyahu all along throughout his time in office. Elvin, thank you for having an open mind, brother. Appreciate it. And I say brother all the time, guys, by the way. If any of you are not that, sorry. Just a thing I say, as a lot of folks know. Anyways, yeah, no question. I mean, you can't argue that he hasn't been dog walked. He's been dog walked like Biden. Like anyone saying that, oh, no, Biden stood up to Israel. It's impossible to say that. Trump stood up to Israel. When? So in Liberty and Guns We Trust says, praying the Gaza peace deal goes through. We really got to move on. It's absolutely sick and devastating. Worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Sick how some people want more war. Can't fathom it. By the way, that's another conservative viewer who says the same thing. Diego Shomet says, I was disrespected at a job yesterday and could have bailed, but I remembered Anna's story about not leaving the set after the tampon stunt. I stayed. Oh, that's awesome. And
damn right, I love it.
Yeah.
It's strength. It's strength. Yep.
And look, I think Anna's a role model, and so
come on.
No, stop. So she did it again the other day on Her Take when Jillian Michaels walked off the set. And everybody's like, "Should we stop?" Anna's like, "No, I got this. Let's keep going." Okay, and it was amazing. So, you know what we do here at the Young Turks? We stay and fight. Okay, and Anna's the best at that. Anthony writes in on YouTube member section, "Love you guys for saying the truth." Well, we love you for wanting the truth. That's why I love this community and this audience. We'll be right back. All right, back on the online news show, Young Turks, Cenk, Ugrana, Kasparian, and Sandra. Sandra just hit the join button and became a Young Turks member. Now she's part of our community. By the way, when I was at ArabCon and the CARE conference in DC and so many other places, folks come up to me and say, you know, I'm a proud member of Young Turks. Oh, I love that. And I appreciate everybody who does that. That means because you're part of the show, you make this show possible. So now Anna's gonna be on CNN tonight, so check that out at 10 o'clock, and she's gonna be on with Jamie Harrison after Hakeem Jeffries is interviewed by Abby Phillip on the same show. So that ought to be a doozy. Don't miss it tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern. Ring the bell if you can on YouTube. Keep on top of the show. We appreciate it. Makes a big difference. Tomorrow, tonight, for the members, we got Operation Joy. If you've never been part of Operation Joy, it's a good enough reason to become a member in the first place. I think you guys are gonna love it. So we talk about things that bring you joy and things that bring us joy and try to brighten up our days a little bit. One of our members wrote in about like, oh man, I went away for a little bit and it did feel good just to touch grass. Totally. So a lot of that discussion a little bit later tonight. And then tomorrow night, we have Operation Hope. I got some interesting plans for Operation Hope that you guys might love, but that's where we try to actually do some good in the world. And so as part of that, we have a new tool now on the Young Turks, and it allows you to email your own lawmaker much easier. So we want to email them for a number of things, including to endorse the populist plank. And then later we'll work on other projects as well. But for now, tyt.com/endorsepopulism. And so that tool allows you to do that very easily for your own members of Congress. Okay, I'm gonna go to Twitch for a second. Roustabouter, the person who was critical of us a little while ago about Tucker Carlson, wrote back in and said, agreed. I just mean let's not launder his reputation in the process. Thanks for reading. Okay, that's beautiful. I'll
take that. I'll take that. Yeah. For sure. By the way, I don't launder his past statements, and to be fair to him, he doesn't launder his past. And look, the thing that made me willing to go on his show was almost on a regular basis, he like condemns himself for previously being a neocon, and he has deep regrets about that. And when he talks about that, I think about myself and the things that I used to believe, and I've obviously changed my mind on, and I have felt some guilt about. So I just think people are complicated. It doesn't mean that he's perfect or that I agree with him on everything now. But I also think like we should have the type of culture that incentivizes people to grow and to change and to feel comfortable saying, you know what, I was wrong about that. I've changed my mind. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and guys, I don't know if we're the only show that does it, but there's nothing wrong with disagreeing with us, right? We just
totally,
yeah. Just keep an open mind, open hearts. Well, almost everyone here has open hearts, okay? So if we can keep open minds and keep the disagreements civil and keep going forward, nobody agrees 100% with anything, right? So anyways, love the open mind you had there. Killer, last one here from Twitch says, the notion of people being obsessed with Israel is another version of right-wingers saying that people on the left have Trump derangement syndrome. Again, Trump is the president. That's why we talk about him. That's why we talk about Israel is supposed to be the chosen people and the greatest democracy in the Middle East, but they act the opposite of those. Yeah, why are you guys obsessed with Israel? I don't know, because they say we owe them tens of billions of dollars and they're gonna use it to slaughter Palestinians and take their land. It's kind of weird if you're not obsessed with a genocide. If you're like, oh yeah, whatever, I don't want to bother my beautiful mind with a genocide. Look, if it's not your job, I'm not hating on you for it. It's okay, let us do it. But the idea that no one's supposed to talk about a genocide while it's happening is absurd and pushed by the people committing the genocide. Of course.
Yeah. Like nothing is going to shame me into shutting up. I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about. Okay, go ahead and call me obsessed. Who cares? We got to take a break, Cenk. We'll be right back.
Go. All right, back on TYT. We'll go more comments here. Lady AF writes in the YouTube member section, Tucker did a bold thing, being vulnerable by reevaluating himself so publicly. Yeah, I agree with that. I do. I think now that they're unrestrained by Fox News, it's gonna be very interesting times. So the old talking point Republicans you're used to are breaking down. And it doesn't mean that they're all gonna go in the right direction at all. But it means that there's at least a chance, a fighter's chance, that on some issues they're going to go in the right direction because they're not being told to be evil by Rupert Murdoch, the king of evil. So Marianne Valdez Fowley writes in, Anna's got the biggest cojones of anyone on the news. She is a role model. Take the compliment, Anna, and know that we all feel the same way.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Flourishing Recovery says, I believe since service members are seriously questioning what it means to serve because of this administration's actions and rhetoric and whether they want to continue serving. But the reason I read that is, my God, if you're in the military, don't go anywhere. Don't stay during the Trump years. Because if all the good guys leave and only the kiss asses stay, then that's a recipe for disaster. Okay, Randy Fine ate my handle. That's a good. Oh
my gosh.
Okay, wrote Hegseth so obsessed with being a warrior, then why did he become a TV host? That's a great question.
There's AC.
I wonder if Fox News had hot yoga in the studio. Jeffrey Doty says.
By the way, look at these guns.
Oh,
you think I was born with these guns? This is like what's left over from when I did hot yoga. They used to be bigger.
Yeah, well, here's my suggestion to Hegseth or anyone else. Don't mess with her. Not gonna work out well, guns or otherwise. Okay, so Anna does have the right to bear arms. Okay, Jeffrey Doty writes in, 3/4 of the UN could vote and go into Gaza to protect the Palestinians. I mentioned this real quick in passing yesterday. The Colombian president mentioned it. He's like, look, 3/4 of us can vote to send in, a much larger military than Israel's to make Israel stop. Like, I've never seen that said out loud in any context, honestly, against any country. And now Israel's like made the entire world so angry that they're like, I don't know. I mean, you got this, what appears to be an invincible military, but what if the whole world said, no, we're sick of your genocide and we're sick of you pretending that you're the victim when you bombed 7 neighboring countries. You keep bombing their capitals. You keep saying you're above the law. Maybe we get together and show you that you're not above the law. So that's dangerous stuff and I don't want it. But Israel's totally out of control. They're just a blind, angry, rageful, destructive giant. So these are weird times. Mark Francis 076 says, my congressional representatives all take AIPAC and oil money. So no movement on Gaza and climate change. Yes, of course, because they're corrupt. They're crooks. Marty Mule 1962 Martinez says, Anna, you did a great job today on Her Take. Should always be the lead, and thank you for teaching your co-hosts to understand some of your points. Look, a lot of people are loving what Anna's saying on Her Take, and you're not alone. Christina Alicia Brown says, Cenk is awesome. Keep playing chess, Cenk. These checker players might never catch on. I appreciate you too. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and pork chop. We can't lose with pork chop on our side. I love it. Thank you for joining, brother. All right, Casper.
Well, former CNN host Don Lemon has some thoughts about the political violence that's been carried out in this country recently. And he believes that there is a common thread that we should all focus on. Take a look.
White men, something is broken. Something is cracked deep inside when so many of you believe the answer to fear, to loss, to change is violence. Are you listening to me? I hope I'm saying it loud enough for the people in the back.
I don't like this. I don't like generalized statements about any group of people, but nonetheless, yesterday's episode of the Don Lemon Show was titled, White Men, Are You Okay? Now, Lemon was specifically responding to the horrific Mormon church shooting over the weekend. And it was a horrific shooting. The perpetrator also lit the church on fire. Two of the individuals who died as a result of the fire. Two others died because of gunshot wounds. But this was also an individual who had multiple deployments to the Middle East. He was a Marine, and we all know that there is a huge problem with our veterans not getting the treatment and the mental health care they need. So maybe the problem's actually a little more deep than someone's skin color. But nonetheless, over the course of this hour-long segment, he repeatedly blamed white men as a whole, kind of generalizing for the epidemic of mass shootings in America. Here's more.
White men, are you okay? Are you okay? Because until you are, this country won't be okay. Until there's some sort of reckoning with your rage, with your racism, with your radicalization. It is white male radicalization. And we need to fight it like the national emergency that it has become. Because the next shooter is already watching. The next shooter is already waiting. It's already soaking in the lies, the conspiracies, all the excuses. So wake up, white men. What the is wrong with you? Don't you realize if you're a poor or average person that you have more in common, gonna blow your mind, with a person of color than you do with the billionaire class or the millionaire class who are co-opting you into thinking that something is happening that's not? They're grifting off of your ignorance.
I agree with that very last point. And this is a broad point that I think needs to be made over and over again. Ordinary working class Americans have far more in common, regardless of their race, regardless of their sexual identity, regardless of their gender, than they do with the elites, with the executives of, multinational corporations and all of that. So I agree with that point. But I do disagree with what he is claiming here in regard to, all of this violence that's been carried out recently, it's because of white men who have been radicalized. When in reality, each terrible act of violence that we've talked about in recent weeks has a different reason. Okay, if they might have been perpetrated by white men, but there are other motivating factors that led to the horrific acts that they committed. So I'll get more specific about it in just a second, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it, Cenk.
Yeah, I don't like it. So look, it's not that I'm not guilty of it, right? In the past, have I fought fire with fire? Yeah, sometimes I did. Yep. And I know why he's doing it. He's saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So because a lot of right wingers now attacking the left wing. Oh, the left wing is violent. The left wing is violent. And in the past, the real problem is black men and black dads and black crime and where are the fathers and all this stuff. Okay, but two wrongs don't make a right. So is it really white men that are the problem? No, of course not. Okay, so look, there's two different issues. One is factual. If you want to know the real answer, is there an actual demographic that commits more crime, more shootings, more violent acts? Unfortunately, there is. It's uncomfortable, but it's true. And the answer is young males. All across the world, it doesn't matter what your race or religion is, young males commit way more crime than any other category in every country across the world. It's testosterone, it's the way that we're built, etc. Now, I'm not saying go do pre-crime and go arrest all young males, whether they're white, black, Asian, etc. No, don't do that, right? But if we're being honest about it and accurate about it, it doesn't have anything to do with white or black. It has to do with young and male, right? So now, the second problem is a bigger one, which is that if we keep going, oh yeah, black guys, oh yeah, white guys, and white men and black men and all this stuff, we're just gonna be permanently divided. So, no, I get why you wanna do pushback when they blame you, but then we get into an endless cycle of culture wars and we never get out of it and we never focus on what the real problem is. And I agree with you, Anna, about his last comment. Yeah, Don, I love the last comment. We should all get together and realize the problem isn't created by someone on your left or someone on your right or someone who's white or someone who's black. It's created by the people up top, the donor class that have basically captured our government. And part of how they capture it is that they get us to fight one another endlessly. So we're distracted while they rob the place blind.
Yeah, like the perpetrator of what happened to that Mormon church had all these crazy paranoid thoughts, including believing that the Mormon church was the Antichrist. Like the guy was disturbed. It wasn't some like, oh, he was brainwashed by like Fox News and he wanted to carry out an act of violence against a Mormon church as a result of that. Like, I just think you have to take these incidents, these horrible, horrific incidents case by case. And yeah, I actually do see a through line aside from, usually being young males. And that through line is undiagnosed, untreated mental health problems. Okay, so like, are we ever gonna get serious about that? Oh, we're not, okay. Well then, look, Don Lemon did have a solution. So I'm gonna skip ahead to the last video here because he thinks, look, there is a group of people in this country that can do something about the scourge of white men. So let's watch.
White ladies, come get your men. Like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe you can help us out here.
Ironically, Don Lemon is married to a white man, so I guess go get your man. I don't know what to say in response to that. But I don't feel responsible for the behavior of anyone else except my own. But I think we should be looking up, not focusing on, commentary that only further divides Americans. Like, I think one of the biggest issues we have in the country, Cenk, is that at one point, I know, because I remember, I was very young, but I remember there was a time in America where even if there were these political squabbles, we at least had a shared identity as Americans, but we've lost that entirely. Now, everyone is specifically obsessed with their personal identity, whether it's race, gender, yada, yada, yada. Okay, but like, when do we stop and actually think we're Americans? We have that shared identity and we wanna live in a country where we thrive, where this country thrives, where this country has a future. And you're just not gonna have that unless we stop with this whole us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
No, I hate it. I can't stand it. I mean, we didn't come to America to get unequal treatment, to get justice for some. And so, but that applies not just to my political opponents, but it also applies to us. Like, so we can't go around saying things. I mean, look, in that case, he says, white ladies, come and get your white men. Imagine if somebody said, black ladies, come get your black men. Black men are such a big problem. so black ladies have to solve it.
We'd be outraged.
Yeah, we'd be outraged. What are you doing? That's crazy, right? Why are you saying that? So now look, again, I think that what he's doing is strike back. He's saying since the right wingers have been saying this about black folks or left wingers, now I'm saying it about you, given the statistics about how more young, not young, but white males do mass shootings, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but it's a majority white country, and we keep striking back at one another until we're all struck. Right, and the guys up top have won again. And lastly, I mean, when we focus so much on race, it's both like tragic, but also a little bit hilarious. So my wife is originally from Taiwan, so is now the new rule: Chinese ladies, come get your Turkish men. What is this? Why is it
so dumb?
It's so dumb, right?
And by the way, do you guys remember how offensive it was when Obama was speaking to young black men and like demanded that they vote for Kamala Harris? Kind of making a point about how like you black men need to vote for the black female candidate in this election.
And he was implying, Anna, sorry, he was implying that they wouldn't because they're sexist. And that's why it was extra insulting.
It was gross. It really was. Like the implication there was gross. You're right.
Yeah, and so cut it out. Just, you know why they should vote for Kamala Harris? Not because she's black, but because she has better policies and is actually going to do them. Oh, right. That would mean that a Democrat would get in office and actually do the things that they promised. Why don't you fix that? When you fix that, we'll be in much better shape, and we don't have to worry about if it's black men that aren't voting enough, according to your opinion, for Democrats, et cetera. So I hope to live long enough to see an actual United States of America.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, bonus episode is gonna be fantastic. I'm not gonna stick around because of the CNN appearance I have tonight, but Cenk will be handling Operation Joy. And you guys are gonna love it. tyt.com/join to become a member. If you're already a member, you don't have to do anything except stick around and enjoy the bonus episode. Any final words, Cenk?
Yeah, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun in the bonus episode. If you've never seen Operation Joy, I think you'll love it. That's what everybody seems to say. And go participate. That's free and available to everybody at tyt.com/joy. And if you want to come join us in the members section, tyt.com/join. All right, much love, guys. We'll see you there in a sec.